YouTubers. This is part two of my homemade disc grinder. You probably need to go back and watch that video to just get a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about, and then I don't have to rehash exactly what it is. But one of my absolute favorite tools in my shop. It was very inexpensive and cheap to fabricate. I learned how to make one from my knife making mentor, Rick Hinder. He is a great knife maker. At this time now, a very famous folding knife maker, and I learned to make knives in Rick's shop, and I'm honored to be his apprentice. And Rick had made one of these machines, and the person who really showed him a lot about knife making had one, and Rick made one, and so I just kind of continued the chain. It's pretty cool, but this little tool is neat. I use it for all kinds of grinding and finishing and finessing knives and small parts. And it also doubles as kind of a cheap, inexpensive, easy-to-use lathe. I take the drill pad out, the sanding pad out, chuck up little metal parts and pieces into the drill chuck, and then I'm able to sand them or file them in a really cool way. So I want to show you a couple applications I use it for, and maybe this will give an idea to someone, to make one, or you could use one like this. If you make any kind of tool like this, of course, it's dangerous. You do that at your own risk. Don't mess around with that kind of stuff if you don't feel confident or have someone to show you. So take a look at a couple ways that I use this. First application, cutting some stainless steel lanyard hole tube. This stuff can be tough to cut. It just is a pain in the butt with a hacksaw. And so what I do is just take the grinding pad, the sanding pad, out of the chuck, and chuck up a piece of this stainless steel tube in there, and just tighten down, make sure it's real secure. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn the machine on and run some files against it. I'm going to start out with a triangular file that has a safe side on it. I've ground it flat so it makes the edge real sharp, and we're going to use this to bite in and make a start cut. So I just hold it against the tube like this where I want it to cut, and then when I get a little bit of a start, run it back and forth like this, just real gentle. Don't push down too hard on a motor like this, because the bearing isn't really meant to take a lot of side pressure. And so I just get a real smooth starting cut, and then I move to another file. This file is designed specifically to cut straight slot in screws. It's a screw file. And so I just run this back and forth in that nice start cut that I made, and it's pretty aggressive. You could even turn it off and then just turn the chuck by hand at this point, and you'll get a lot of cutting action. You don't want to be too aggressive. Then you just snap it off, and there you have your little piece. You can leave that piece chucked in, or chuck up the other piece, the smaller piece in the chuck, and then run the files against it to clean up the end and get a nice burr-free finish to stick through a hole that you would drill in the tang of a knife for a lanyard. So again, just chuck this up nice and firm, and then I take a small Swiss pattern, just a real fine file, and here you can see I'm just hitting the burr off and then beginning to shape it a little bit. Chamfer it a tiny bit so it fits down through the thong hole that I've drilled the lanyard hole in the handle. Fits down there real easy when I want to epoxy it in. So just kind of cleaning it up here, and definitely can do this operation faster than someone could set this up to do in a little lathe. And not like you'd even really want to lathe a part like this, but this is just really, really handy, and you can see how fast it is to get a really nice finish. It's got a little bit of a burr kind of stuck on the inside, but that's not even attached anymore, and you can see how smooth it is. So the next application is turning down oversized pin stock. It's really a pain when you get pin stock that is oversized and doesn't fit accurately in the hole, so you can just turn this down real easy with this tool. So here I just put some little bit of oversized 1/8" pin stock into the chuck, turn it on, and then just take this little file and just very gently, because it cuts pretty easily. Don't want to put too much downward pressure on it, and I just kind of make these short smoothing cuts like this, hog some off a little bit, and again, this works. This works so nice because pins are hard to take down if they're a little oversized. And once I do that, just take a piece of sandpaper and begin to sand like this, run it back and forth. And this is how I get the pins to fit, keep a tight fit still, and the surface is also prepared nicely for epoxy because I don't have it too fine or polished, and the glue will hold that really easily. That's what it looks like. Okay, so the next application is reshaping a folder pivot. Sometimes I get a folder pivot that isn't right, or I've had to cut the head down. It's just kind of dinged up. So again, I chuck that up in my little machine here and just take, again, a smooth, very smooth cutting Swiss pattern file and just go over the head, take the dings out or the saw marks out if I've sawn it down a little bit. And then just sometimes too, I turn the edge down a little so that when I recess the pivot into a folder handle, it sits down a little bit better into the recessed hole. Then I just take a piece of sandpaper, about a 300 grit or so, and polish that up, or 600 grit. And then you can take a piece of Scotch-Brite like this, which is a kind of a woven or non-woven texturing scouring type pad, and that gets kind of a cool finish on it, kind of a matte finish. It's not too shiny, as you can see, and really smooths it up. So here's a little closer look at two of the parts and why I love this little machine so much.